Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. We find ourselves in Demon's Souls, the PS3 version, the original, the GOAT, and my preferred version, although I think the remake's actually really cool, and still one of the best looking games of all time. But today, this is about a monstrous advancement in Demon's Souls modding that happened exactly yesterday. After I made yesterday's video about Bloodborne, something cataclysmic happened. Actually, I do not want to load a game. I want to start a new game. Because I want to show you what I have been able to mod with these new tools, because Demon's Souls modding has been incredibly limited, because it didn't have file unpacking similar to the other games. You were very limited in what you could do in level editor or map editor, DS Map Studio. You could, because the map pieces were so massive that you didn't really have granular control over things, because instead of just one bushel of grass, it would be a map piece that had like 50. So you couldn't really do anything with that, because if you tried to duplicate or move it, it would move the other 49 bushels of grass. Would you like to play the Journey to the Nexus? I forgot to give you that as an option. But yes, we are running this on the RPCS3 emulator, of course, which is probably the best emulator of all time in terms of the complexity of the PS3 and it being able to actually manage that. I think, so as you can tell, as I'm walking over this, the foliage, I specifically told the foliage to, like, I talked to the foliage one-on-one, and I told them to start casting shadows. Now, I do have a full dynamic lighting mod for Demon's Souls already, but here I'm going to be a little bit more targeted. That's not necessarily what the modding advancement is about. I've already been able to do the dynamic shadows, but I felt like I would do them while I was here anyway. Also, let me fix this, take off some armor, because I don't want a fat roll. Because in Demon's Souls, they were really cool, and they were like, it's going to be 50%. Above 50%, you fat roll. Below 50%, you do a nice quick roll. So they made it really, like, simplistic, which I actually kind of like. I like that it's very simple. So actually, let's kill him, because this is the first area. Oh, you little jabroni. So in here, I was able to modify, for the first time ever, for me, and probably the world, frankly, the map piece here, I was able to edit in Blender and apply smooth mesh shading to these bricks. But not only that, I altered them, I beveled the edges, and I actually made them a higher poly count. So now they actually blend in. I will show you a comparison screenshot later, so don't worry about that. I will absolutely do that. And then I applied smooth mesh shading to the bricks, because you'll see they do have some geometric bricks that are on the wall, although the UV mapping is fucked. But now I can fix the UV mapping. Before, we could never fix those UV mapping issues. But now that we can import it into Blender, it's amazing. And also these bricks here, I actually had placed them myself and moved them. And because before it was just a flat wall, and so I actually stole some of these bricks, duplicated them, and put them up on this wall. And then for a test in here, I decided, because you'll notice on the default wall, it basically is a flat wall, but then they would put some geometric bricks, and this is something they obviously did in DS1 as well, to sort of give it a little bit more detail. Now for fun, I took one side, so this is the original side, and then on this side, I duplicated the bricks so many times, and I aligned them on this wall. So now you have an entire wall of geometric bricks just as a test. And so they're not like perfectly aligned or like made to look more natural, but I just wanted to see, like, would the game be cool with that? And it turns out the game was very much cool with that. Thanks to the power of Blender again, we can now place all these geometric objects. And then, you know, so here's like another flat wall. And the other thing I'm doing, which actually isn't really related to the modding advancements, it's mostly that I've learned how to trivia a while back showed me how to enhance normal maps, even like without really upscaling them or anything. You can actually bring them into Photoshop and then alter the levels on the normal map, because it'll show you this little like histogram looking thing, and so you can actually like bring the dials together and you can enhance the detail that's there. Not on all normal maps, but on a good number of them. And so they will, and I've adjusted all of them for the tutorial areas. So you'll notice the normal map has just a little bit more perceived depth on it, which is just kind of another small little thing. In the future, I'd like to try to add like a normal map, because you can see this floor here does not have a normal map at all. Now, an issue we still have is that we cannot, at least I cannot, the tools that open up the models for FromSoft games cannot open up the Demon Souls ones. Which is such a shame. There's got to be some internal Fiverr model differences, but like, so this floor is not using a normal map at all. And I would need to give it a normal map, which I can generate one, which is fine, because it doesn't have one by default. But the problem is I can't edit the actual Fiverr model. So I have to figure out how, I mean, I got to DM Pair and be like, hey man, is it possible that we could add Demon Souls support to Fiverr editor, because that would just, because then I could turn off backface culling really easily. I also turned on the shadow casting for this wall here. I'm basically doing it on like a case-by-case basis. So the trees have shadow casting now, even those trees down there do. I had to edit the shadow param settings, but once again, my work on DS1 and my previous work on Demon Souls made that very easy. So I could turn on the shadow casting, and by default it culled the shadows very close, so I fixed that. And so now you have, you might notice in this area, there's a lot more foliage than there normally is. Well, that's because now with Blender, I could manually go through and actually go, oh, I want more bushes. Okay, I'm gonna go grab this bush. I'm gonna select all the mesh faces, or vertices if you want to do it that way. I use mesh faces and select that, and then I tried to tastefully move around the bushes and even like the grass here. I grabbed the grass mesh and I was like, okay, let me rotate, let me scale this one a little bit bigger, let's move this one over here. And so you'll see this area actually has more grass now. And then of course I told the grass to, I spoke to the grass one-on-one, as per usual, and I told the grass to cast shadows. So now you get these really nice, now the shadows in Demon Souls are like these really sharp stencil shadows. That's just kind of the way it does it. But I kind of like them. I think they're kind of cool. I don't know, they're like super sharp. And so yeah, this wall I also took into Blender, and I had to, because there's no backface on this. And unfortunately I don't have Fiverr editor, so I couldn't turn off backface culling easily. So I actually just used and generated a new face back there. So the user can't see it, but it's blocking the light, and I modified that model. So it's so crazy to be able to edit these models. And so I'll show you that now, but I just wanted to show you, on the thumbnail, you'll see the comparison here, a screenshot I took of like barely any foliage here, and then boom, more foliage. It's really cool. I forgot to duplicate these ones that they put in the water. Also, this area has aged so well. Like, this is from 2009, but I honestly think it looks fucking great. I think the fog is awesome. I think the actual like baked lighting is kind of really cool, and then the bloom and the water, I think honestly looks fucking awesome. And I don't know, I just like this area is, Demon Souls in a lot of ways is so timeless. It has such a timeless aesthetic. Also, the armor looks fucking awesome. That's what I love about it, is the armor looks insane. It still looks so good. And like the cloth part and the detail and the normal maps and the specular maps, like, oh, it's just such a timeless aesthetic. And then obviously having the shadows like go over your character, because they weren't using like any player masking as far as I can tell. But oh my god, dude, it looks so good. And also I'm running it at 1440p in RPCS3. And I have the 60 FPS patch applied and turned off motion blur. But dude, it looks so good. Your character kind of looks a little wonky, but yeah, let's bring it into Blender now, because I'm sure you're going to be like, show me the Blender, you've edged me long enough. I agree. And let's close the game. And let's go into Blender, because Soulstruct for Blender, the program I used a lot for Dark Souls Remastered, where I was able to bevel edges and up the geometric density on things, and a lot of modifications you could make. I could fix mesh holes. There's so much that you can do in Blender that before with DS Map Studio and Fiverr Editor, like, we couldn't do that. You know, you just didn't have that control. But yeah, it was really unexpected that yesterday Grimrukh was like, hey, by the way, Blender for Soulstruct has now been updated and it works with 95% of Demon Souls. I'm assuming there's 5% that's like kind of glitchy, but and it was actually commissioned because he took a modding commission for it from the Northern Limit team that were working on that 6th Archstone project, which makes total sense that they would want to have actual Blender tools. So let's see. So M8, yeah, let's try to load the map we were just in. So we have select game map, MSB, region, draw, settings, import, and export. So we want to import the whole M08 map, which is the first tutorial map. And it will hang for a little bit because it's got to load all the map pieces. And I'll show you in real time. Now, it took a lot longer to load Boletaria, but I was able to load. Hey, look at that. I think it had an issue on one mesh. Oh, so the other issue, at least with the tutorial area, is it loads all the meshes on top of each other, which is not great. It must be some sort of coordinate issue. But even if that weren't true, we can hit new here. And I forgot about that. Yeah, that. So I've already put in a bug report on a different mesh that wasn't importing. But if we do Fiverr import and we're on that, we import map piece, and let's pull in one we pulled in recently. What about 25? What's 2503? Yeah, 2503 is this hallway segment. And the cool thing is you can actually go into edit mode in Blender, and now I have complete control. It's kind of like that which one is it? Mass Effect 2, the guy that would always say, assuming direct control. I am assuming direct control. And so basically I could like select this brick and say, you know what? Let's move this shit. I don't like where this brick is at. Yoink. And now I can move the brick. I can move the brick to my heart's content. Not only that, I can say, you know what? Shift D, motherfucker. Boom. Boom. Yoink. And we can start duplicating shit. So this is like an easy way of how you can up geometric quantity, well, quantity and quality. Now, in this case, on the floor, you don't actually want to do this because I'd have to also update the collision for like floor meshes and whatnot, so the character doesn't just walk through them. But bricks on the wall works really well because your character is not going to just be, you know, flying right through them. Now, an interesting thing in Demon Souls is, at least in the tutorial area thus far, and in the early Boletaria section, I noticed that the stairs were they already had like a beveled edge for increased complexity, where there's actually a lot of cases in Dark Souls 1 where they were just a flat, like, rectangular prism. Like, so I always find Demon Souls really fascinating because it's a weird mashup of pretty high quality meshes, even compared to like Dark Souls 1, which was 2 years later, or Dark Souls 2 even, and then some really low quality like textures and shit. So it's this weird mashup, and then sometimes it has really low quality meshes, but it's this really odd case of really good and then oof, not great. And then sometimes they'll have like 2K resolution textures. I checked on the Dragon God guy. Let's try to load 801, which is the next part of the tutorial. So 801, yeah, let's do that. MSB app import 801. Let's see if it loads them all on top of each other. Because Boletaria didn't do that. Now maybe I have a setting wrong, but Boletaria loaded fine, so I assume my settings are fine. This one might take a little bit longer. But no, it was really funny. I was going through the normal maps, and so here's the other thing about Demon Souls modding that improved like a month ago, I think. So Witchy B&D, which if you've watched any of my videos, that's the unpacking program that unpacks all the file formats and repacks them. And it's essential. It's like gasoline for a car. Like Witchy B&D is so fucking needed. But for Demon Souls, it didn't work up until about a month ago. It just wouldn't work on Demon Souls files, and they updated it, which is so nice because we used to have to use this old B&D unpacker program, and it was kind of unwieldy. And so that's huge. The fact that I can just witchy B&D and then boom, boom, I can edit textures, or unfortunately textures. So a lot of people are going to ask that question of like, what about upscaling textures? Well, a little bit of a problem. There is a memory problem with Demon Souls where if you go over their internal memory limits, which I believe they are different for each map, it seems, which I guess makes sense, it will just not load. Hey, I think this actually loaded correctly. Hell yeah. Okay, so this is so fucking cool, is that you can literally load the entire map all together, and that includes, oh, so this actually loaded like the nav meshes and the collisions as well. So this ended up loading more than I wanted. I guess I forgot to turn off. But you can even see the characters. Like you now have a fully fledged map editor. But not only that, because you might be thinking, well, you already have DS Map Studio, so what's the big fucking deal? It's like, well, the thing is, I can actually just choose this and then immediately start editing that mesh. Like, are you kidding me? That's insane. Yeah, DS Map Studio, you could just move stuff. You couldn't. Oh, is that? Okay, interesting. Like, so that's crazy. I definitely need to, next time I import it, not do the collisions. Oh, that must be like a collision box. But yeah, like this is just a galactic improvement for Demon Souls modding. It's crazy. It's so sick. Like you can see this guy. What if we select this jabroni? Because this is actually, yeah, this loaded, because he's obviously not a map piece. He's an actual enemy. So it's loading enemies, map pieces, objects. Yeah, look at this little pillar. Look at this high quality pillar. This is higher quality than some of Dark Souls 1 models. It's crazy. But one thing you can do, let's see if it works on this guy. Let's go over to Fiverr, which is the other tab. Model tools, and I think, okay, well that kind of made it worse. So I have noticed the smooth mesh shading does not work as well for Demon Souls models. I don't really know why. It works a lot better in Dark Souls 1. That it affects those fibers very well, and it really just improves the overall like look of them. But here I've kind of noticed a little like, Oh, so that's flat shading. That's ultimate flat shading. That's hilarious. I love that. Shade auto smooth. Okay, so auto smooth, and then yeah, it's not great. Oh, okay, so shade smooth is the best. Yeah, because he shouldn't be super geometric, but that's how much mesh shading actually matters. That's a good example of that. But if you try to do the same smoothness to like, because in this game you can tell that the beveled edges are very obvious. So it's very clear how geometric it is, or not geometric. I mean, it's beveled edges, so it's better than some of the Dark Souls 1 models already. Ooh, yeah, so auto smooth made it worse. Shades, well, okay, shade smooth made it a little bit better. Basically, you're shading it so that to the eye, it's just less noticeable that there are beveled edges. So let's try the actual Blender Soulstruct option. Oh, okay. So this was an option where Blender Soulstruct was much better. So I've noticed it be kind of, oh, and it automatically affected the other ones. Oh, they look so much better. Yeah, so this is another case of like, you can kind of do this to a lot of different models and kind of see if you like what it looks like. You have to, it's definitely on a case-by-case basis. Oh shit, Yeah, so you'll notice with Demon Souls, their fivers are like, this object is the entire goddamn arena. They had very big, massive map pieces, which made it really hard for any sort of editing. But if we select the very specific things we want to apply smooth mesh shading to, which in this case would be these little broken fucking brick things, I'm assuming. Yeah, it wouldn't look this jacked up if I hadn't loaded in the collisions and some other things. But so this is sort of another instance of, can we make these look less jagged and less shitty? So if we do shade flat, which is kind of what it already is. Yeah, shade smooth didn't do much. Not that I can tell. I always forget that I can hold down control and then the scroll wheel. Press it down, you get a nice view. Okay, yeah, so once again, Blender Soulstruct was the one that actually had good, smooth custom normals. So once again, they still are geometrically simple, but actually here's another instance where we can, now that we've had them selected, we can actually do a beveled edge. Now this is actually not the way you want to do it. So first you want to tries the quads. So it gets rid of some extra polys there. So that way when you bevel the edges, it's actually just clearer and there's less artifacting and kind of shitty looking. It's not, these aren't great things to really bevel edges on, to be honest with you. Oh, also you can turn on texturing. That's my bad, I forgot to do that. It's loading them. Hey, look at that. So you can literally look at the exact map as you're editing it. Which of course you could also see textures in DS Map Studio, but the amount of granular control we now have is kind of crazy. So this is just it's a fucking game changer. It's huge. So I wanted to make a video about it immediately because I'm like, I love Demon Souls, but yeah, the fact that we could up the poly count through a targeted bevel is so sick. I fucking love it. It's so cool. Yeah, if we did the whole thing, yeah, smooth mesh shading overall, but we do triangulate it back. And now they are a little bit more geometric, but that's kind of sloppy and I don't really like them. But as a showing of how it can look, these look a lot better. See, look at these now. Now that you see them fully textured and not like in select mode, you can see they look so much more geometric and smooth, despite the fact that we didn't affect their geometry at all. We literally just changed the mesh shading. And so now they look so much more complex, even though they aren't. That's the beauty of mesh shading. It's like this really cool thing that if applied correctly, which I have been known to apply incorrectly and then had to go back and fucking fix, but still so sick. And it's such a cool way to improve something without altering the actual model itself. So it's kind of the ideal situation. Like take the fucking win, because there's a lot of areas where they already have beveled edges. So I don't need to add bevels on top of bevels. I'm a bevel dude. But yeah, so little changes like this, normal maps that stick out a little bit more, dynamic shadow casting, targeted, not like I did before where I did everything because that was stupid. And yeah, I don't know, it's a lot of fun. I like playing around with it. So let me know what you think. I'm just living my best life over here. Yeah, he looks pretty good. Look at his these three little eyes. Look at that guy. Oh yeah, I forgot to finish the story earlier when I was checking out Dragon God, because if you kill this boss, which you can kill this boss, but you're meant to die, but as a secret, if you kill him, you get to go face off against the Dragon God, and then he wallops your ass. But he has like a 2K resolution normal map, which I always thought was kind of, once I saw it, I was like, well, shit, that's kind of weird because he's kind of off in the distance. And like, yes, he is a big boss, but I don't know. They spent quite a bit of space on that normal map for how far you are away. And the fact that it was running at 720p on PS3 at 30 FPS and a lot of depth of field. So like, could you have gotten away with a 1K normal map? 1000%. 1000% you could have. But anyway, hopefully you found this interesting, of me yapping about my love of Demon Souls, and now that we have an insane insane extra tool that's just a fucking game changer. It's huge. It's massive. It's the things I wanted to, you know, I wanted to work on the original Demon Souls more than I have. I guess I need to commission someone to do the binary editing of the eboot.bin and like basically create a patch for RPCS3 that fixes the memory limits, because presumably it's in there somewhere throughout all the ones and zeros of binary editing or hex editing or whatever. There is a fix for that somewhere. And that would allow me to load in better textures, and I could upscale the entire game. And that is something I've always wanted to do. It's not ideal with the way that resolutions work in RPCS3, because it seems like they're mostly using like Fidelity FX Super Resolution 1, not 2, of course, because that requires motion vectors, it's the whole thing. But 1, and that's what they're using as like their output scaling. So it's not like natively rendering at a higher resolution, I think. So that isn't great, but it still looked awesome. So your texture resolution upgrades are not going to be as noticeable, but even still, I remember of the small ones I was able to do before I crashed the game, because I could do like, oh, I did 4 texture upscales. I didn't crash the game. That's great. And then I would do a 5th one and it wouldn't load. And I'd be like, fuck. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's still awesome. It's really cool. And I'm having the time of my life. So thank you for watching. Thank you for always supporting me and my yapping. And you get to learn about all this weird shit that's happening in the Souls modding community. There's brilliant people, and so shout out to Grimrukh, the legend behind Dark Souls Nightfall and other mods I can't think of right now, but Blender Soulstruct being a game changer and literally working on a tool that was used and developed during Dark Souls Nightfall and continues to be developed, but it literally releasing that tool for free and just enabling so many more people to create things. That is awesome. Like, that's legend status. You can't get better than that. And he's also such a homie. And we've talked a little bit, and they're so nice. So, anywho, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Say goodbye to whoever the fuck this guy is. Asylum Demon? I want to say Asylum Demon, but Demon Souls version of Asylum Demon. The OG. This is the OG fat guy who you got to get up in the gooch. Anyway, see you later.